What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about 3 different Grayscale trusts today at the request of Mr. Ramel. We're doing this for you, sir. Hit the like button, subscribe, and let's get into it, my friends. We're going to talk about BCHG, LTCN, and then HZEN. And I know you didn't request HZEN, but Horizon's, Zen's been doing good a little bit recently, right? There's some life in there. Maybe HZEN might be worth talking about. We could all stand to benefit from a little bit of analysis on both of them. I'm actually surprised. Look at how gappy this BCHG chart is. That's so wild. So it's kind of weird too, because you actually have decent volume. I mean, it's not like crazy volume. I don't know. You're very gappy, very gappy here. Anyways, let's do some TA. We'll get into this. Hit the like button, subscribe, and let's go. Here we are at $3.82 right now. Bitcoin Cash coming off of what has been a very, I would say, massive bear market, right? BCHG here, not Bitcoin Cash. I'm sorry, BCHG. This massive ABC correction here. Perfect little Harry Potter lightning symbol, ready to take us higher, right? Typically with corrective moves, you do get an ABC correction. Don't take my word for it. TradingView knows, right? Elliott wave, correction wave, right? It's an ABC. That's exactly what this is. A, B, C. It's exactly that. That's exactly what it is. It even shows you in the diagram right here, right? Like just like that. Perfect. Anyways, we've corrected. A correction implies that there was a move, right? Like if we were moving down and then we corrected, the move was the down move. The correction was here, which means we have more to go, right? If we moved up and we corrected, that likely means we have more to go to the upside. And I am under the impression that BCHG will see new relative highs here. In correspondence to Bitcoin Cash, my expectation is that BCH will see something on the lines of a $4,000 price by the end of this year. If not by the end of this year, then maybe by the end of January. But let's just start small. Let's say 2K. Let's start even smaller. Let's say we tip the tip here. We do a 226% move. Okay. Bitcoin Cash, since April, is up about 100%. What's BCHG up right now since April? Since April, BCHG is up about 70%. So you're up a little bit less. I don't think that's how it's going to persist. I do think that as time goes on, we are going to see Bitcoin Cash move up, and then we'll see BCHG move at a faster pace. Typically, we do see these premiums kick in, and that the price does take off. But there is the what's the word I want to use? The awareness, the possibility that an ETF for BCH gets passed anytime between now and the end of this year, or sometime next year. And if that happens, Grayscale is going to pass. They're going to shift their BCHG into an ETF as well. And in which case you won't have a premium. You'll just be tracking Bitcoin Cash. So right now I'm actually kind of curious, what is BCHG's NAV price versus its actual price? Let's just see. I always want to avoid doing this part, but I think it's unavoidable. You have to do this, I think. Right here. There we go. So the NAV price is $3.98, right? Where the market price is $3.66. So we're actually at a discount right now. And that might be why we didn't pump up as high, right? We're at a deficit kind of moment. If Bitcoin Cash were to get an ETF, that would actually be really good for BCHG, because if we had an ETF, you would see this thing increase from, a $3.66 market price to a $4 market price like that overnight, right? If Bitcoin Cash itself moves up only 226%, BCHG, let's see, first off, it would move up to $4, right, if we had an ETF approved. So that'd be about 10% there, right? It's just below $4, something like that. If we saw Bitcoin Cash from its current price move up 226%, that would put BCHG roughly at about $13 to $12, somewhere in that range, okay? And this is very minimal stuff. We're working our way up, right? I don't think that BCHG is going to go up here and then that's it, right? I think maybe you go up here, maybe you consolidate, you continue to rally, maybe you consolidate, you continue to rally, whatever. But it all depends on Bitcoin Cash. And this is if you have an ETF. If you don't have an ETF, instead of 226%, with Bitcoin Cash growing that much, I would anticipate that BCHG does double that. So maybe you're more like 440%, something like that, and you're up at $21. But with an ETF, because again, we're trying to be conservative, it's better to be pleasantly surprised than expect the world and be given crumbs, right? If an ETF passes by the end of this year, if an ETF passes sometime next year. Bitcoin Cash, BCHG, regardless of what it does, it goes to a premium, it goes to a further deficit, whatever it does, it'll come right back to the NAV price, which is what we're basing this off of, right? Which is at $4. So $499 now, $4 here by this measurement, right? That's where we have. It's just below $4, like right there at NAV price. If BCH itself were to do what I think it's going to do, which is go all the way up to about $4,000, let's just say 4,000 right on the money there, okay, right there. That's about a 700% move. BCHG then would see 700% from $4, which would put you at roughly $32. So in case it's confusing, and I know that I can be confusing, I'm trying not to be confusing. Let me just try and lay it all out here for you so that it's easier to digest in case it's been hard to digest, okay? If Bitcoin Cash has an ETF by the end of this year, or going into January, something like that, right? Before it moves up to $4,000, if Bitcoin Cash has an ETF, BCHG will likely see a $31 to $32 price if Bitcoin Cash goes to $4,000. Okay? If it only goes to $2,000, and that's my, or $1,600, not even $2,000. If it only goes to $1,600, then BCHG will likely not pass $13. Okay. So 13 to 32, it's a big range. My money is on Bitcoin Cash itself going up here to this area by the end of the year, if not January. My money kind of is, honestly, on BCHG turning into an ETF. And in which case, if Bitcoin Cash goes up here and BCHG follows it because it's an ETF, it's directly correlated, then we'd see about a $31 price. Now, if there's no ETF, right, again, if there is an ETF, Bitcoin Cash only goes here, BCHG will only go like here, just above these highs. If there's an ETF and Bitcoin Cash goes here, BCHG will go all the way up here. But if there's no ETF and these same things happen, from this price for Bitcoin Cash, your prior cycle high at 1,600, 1,700 there, BCHG would likely see double the growth, right? If there's no ETF, we'd like to get a premium back in. So instead of a 226% move, we might expect a 440% move, which would take us above $20. So on the minimum end without an ETF, the stakes are higher. Without an ETF, if Bitcoin Cash goes to 4K and BCHG still, there's no ETF conversion, it's still just a trust. I mean, man, we could see by the time Bitcoin Cash is worth $4,000, we could see this thing at $50 or more. And again, these are end of year to January predictions, not end of cycle, right? Depending on how this all goes down, let's imagine a world where Bitcoin Cash tops off wherever it tops off, right? By the end of the cycle, somewhere around here, I'm assuming. If BCHG is not converted into an ETF, if it's still a trust, likely you will see spectacular new all-time highs. Okay, spectacular new all-time highs. And likely as well, you would probably top off within a month to 3 months before Bitcoin Cash does in itself. And if I'm expecting Bitcoin Cash to top off in April, May, June, you might then top off in January, February, March. Does that make sense? Yeah, for BCHG. Anyways, just looking at the chart for what it's worth, the weekly time frame, the RSI is very strong. You got very overbought and you couldn't even get oversold. Now you're finding support at the 40. You're actually getting above the 60. That's nice to see. The stochastics are at areas to find support. The MACD is trying to cross back above the 0. You did cross above the 0. You actually look really good. You're set. You were literally like fireworks on gasoline now. We're just waiting for that match to light. That's it. Like genuinely, you were about to see some, like genuinely, I feel like a Valley girl. I don't think I've said like in a long time. Like genuinely, like totally, dude. Maybe I say the word like, but just not in that sense. I would expect that we move up to our golden ratio. Without everything else implied, I would just think that we move up to our golden ratio somewhere around $10 to $11.30, right? $9.50 to $11.30. Somewhere in that range. That's the next target area. But if we get an ETF, all of this TA off of this doesn't make sense. Really, it would just make sense to base it off of this. So it just depends. It depends, right? We're going to leave the door open for that. Anyways, that's BCHG. As far as end of cycle stuff goes, I hope it's very clear in case anybody's wondering. Yes, but will it see new all-time highs, C-Zar? I hope it's very obvious that absolutely it will. If Bitcoin Cash does what I think it's going to do, which is it's going to go at least, I think, to 13K by the end of the cycle. There's just no scenario at all where BCHG would not see new all-time highs. So just hold out, Grayscalers. You guys will be vindicated in time. Let's see. Let's talk about LTCN now. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor. LTCN, LTC. LTC is consolidating. With the recent hype that Zcash and Dash have promoted, Litecoin is definitely one of the coins that's on the chopping block, right? I feel like coins that are on the chopping block right now for what's the next coin to pump, because it's been Zcash and Dash, what's the next one? People are theorizing Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, that's why we're talking about them, right? Monero, other coins, I'm sure. I'm drawing a blank on them. I don't know. Other coins that have been consolidating for multiple cycles that haven't broken out yet. Maybe Stellar Lumens, maybe other coins like that. I can't. I'm drawing a blank. I feel like there's another coin that I'm thinking of, but I can't think of it. Anyways, we'll move on. I do expect, and I fully anticipate that Litecoin's next move will likely take it above its all-time highs. I think when you break out of this zone, you are going to just surpass your all-time highs, especially with what we've seen with Zcash and Dash. I thoroughly believe that that's what we're going to see, is something that's above $400. And likely then, if we take this high here to this low here, likely then I think the next target destination really to consider, it's a bit far away from here, but it'd be something around $700, $800. It's about an 8x move. LTCN, and we'll do the same thing here. Come up with the NAV price and everything. That gallon is empty, man. Empty, empty. Gotta crush it. Gotta crush it. Put it in the trash. All right, let's see. Right here. So NAV price is 810. Market price is 777. It's actually even lower than that. It's a little bit lower than 777. So the NAV price should be, I would think that it accounts for the current price, maybe, but if it's at $8.10, $8.10 is basically like right there, right? If LTC is projected to do what I would consider an 8x between now and the end of January, not the end of the cycle, let's imagine that LTCN becomes an ETF as well. Then even if LTCN becomes an ETF, you're still going to see something that's above this high back here. And you could go higher. Maybe we go higher. Maybe we don't go as high. I would expect that we would at least hit this level here, if not higher, personally. But you know, something around this high with an ETF is where Litecoin would be, LTCN would be. $50, $65, somewhere in that range, right? Without the ETF, we would likely see dramatically higher prices. Imagine instead of a 7x, an 8x move, you have a 16x, a 20x move, something like that, right? Without the ETFs, and the reason why people, if you're watching this and you're wondering what is he even talking about, why would it be worth more without the ETF, is because these are trusts. They're not ETFs. They're not directly connected or tethered to the price action of the assets, right? Whenever the assets or the underlying asset is moving up, these move up more. When the underlying asset is moving down or being stagnant, these move down more, okay? And just like Bitcoin Cash, you've had your ABC correction here. I think you're ready to turn over a new leaf here, right? It's really hard to do analysis because I do expect by the end of this year, I expect that both Litecoin and Bitcoin Cash will both have ETFs. So it's kind of pointless to do the analysis without the ETFs. To me, it doesn't make sense, but we're going to do it anyways because we don't know the future. We don't know the future. We've got Bitcoin ETFs, we've got Ethereum ETFs, we've got a bunch of, there's an XRP ETF, there's other ETFs that are coming out. It would make sense that both of these cryptos get ETFs as well by the end of the year because apparently there's a whole slew of ETFs that are coming by the end of the year. But let's pretend that they don't. If they don't, Litecoin, by the time Litecoin moves up to new all-time highs, it moves up to that $700-800 area, right? LTCN could be worth over $100. Hell, it could be worth over $200. We don't know. The potential's there. Hold on, I gotta sneeze, man. I think so. Let me see. Maybe. I want to. It's not happening. Damn. It's one of those. One of those comes and goes, and now my nose tickles. I would expect that we move higher though, right? Because again, even with the ETF, which would not allow for a premium in LTCN to grow, right? You would lock in your price at the NAV price, and then you would just move up with Litecoin in tandem. So I'd very much expect that a $65 price or more is very attainable between now and the end of January, if not earlier. Again, the difference there is without an ETF, you have higher price perspectives, but you'll also top off before LTC. With an ETF, this chart's not really going to help us. You're going to respect what Litecoin does, okay? And you're going to respect what it does to some degree anyways. But let's imagine that you don't have an ETF and we're making our move up from a high here to a low here. The expectation then would be that this next move should take us either to the 0.5 or the golden ratio, so we have a range of about $17 to $27 to focus on for LTCN. And $17 here takes us kind of right at this area of resistance here, support right there, resistance right there, kind of in the heart of this zone. I wouldn't think that we stopped at the 382. Normally I would, but the fact that we stopped just below there, I think we have more reason to push higher. And if we don't stop there, we go to the golden ratio, which again, prior resistance here, resistance there, support right there, resistance, resistance, support back here. I really have a strong feeling that LTCN will be seeing a $22 price or higher by the end of this year. And if LTCN does, or if LTC does what I think it's going to do, you should have no problem getting above $60 by the end of January, if not by the end of this year as well. Okay, a lot of potential there. And then the question is, how high could we go? What's the all-time high potential? And that's a good question to ask because it's kind of hard to answer. You know, from a high to a low, I don't know which fib to take. I feel more comfortable taking this fib. That is the all-time high from last cycle, but this one encapsulates the whole range you've been consolidating in for the past several cycles now. So I would think that LTC, at a minimum by the end of the cycle, we see a $2,100 price. And while I did discount these, we took these, we were considering these prices for a long time. About a month ago, I took them off the table. And then with the stuff that's happened with Zcash and Dash, I could really see Litecoin. I really could see it going to $6,300 to $4,500. It's back on the table again. So as far as the range goes, anything from a 22x to a 66x is possible. 22 to 66. If Litecoin could do a 22 to a 66x, then LTCN, again from $8.10, because that's the NAV price. If it can see a, what was it, 66 to 22, 22x, 66 to 22x, that would then imply that LTCN sees anything by the end of the cycle from $180, let's just say, to, what was it, 66, to potentially $540, somewhere up there. I doubt, and now the only way, and that would put you actually right there at your all-time high. The only way that Litecoin, LTCN, Grayscale Trust sees new all-time highs would be if there is no ETF approved for Litecoin. There's no ETF approved for Litecoin, and Litecoin does everything that we're saying. Because if that remains to be true, then there's still premiums with the trust, and you likely will. If Litecoin does a 66x or 65x, LTCN likely doubles that or more. You'd see something over $1,000. It's very possible that LTCN sees a $1,000 price or more, but only if there's no ETF approved. Because if there is an ETF approved, Grayscale will shift their trust into an ETF, and then again you lock that market price to the NAV price. ETF versus trust, ETF, it's locked in, an exchange traded fund, where a trust, it's more of just like a stock that it's technically, is it a stock technically? Would it be a stock? It's a trust where they have a cache of Litecoin stored somewhere, and that has a value to itself. And you're making plays based off of that value growing or diminishing. And with that, you can get premiums and discounts. Anyways, that's LTCN. I'm sure you guys know. I'm just explaining because the last time we talked about this, I probably had less subscribers. There might be new people who haven't heard this before. They're like, what the hell's a NAV price? Which we all had that question. You're not dumb. You're not less sophisticated. Every single one of us, high society types, we all looked up what does NAV mean? Native asset value. And really all that means, to put it in words, is this sorry. Hold on guys. Hold up. This is if you took the total amount of Litecoin per share and you added that dollar value, what their Litecoin's worth per share, that's what it's worth. Okay. Litecoin per share is that they have this many Litecoins per share. That value is $8.10. And of course it would be just under this, right? Because Litecoin is almost at $100. If it was at $100, the NAV price would be at $8.24. Does that make sense, right? I hope I'm making sense out of it. Anyways, Zen. We'll talk about HZEN now. We'll finish up this video. All in all, I like LTCN and I like BCHG. I think that as far as Grayscale trusts go, they're probably some of the more secure trusts to be in right now. Oh, HZEN definitely showing some life. Wow. Since July, you moved up. You did a good little almost 6x move. You're up 3x from your lows in July. That's nice. What's Zen doing? Zen's chilling. Zen's moving up. Ooh, Zen's up 30% today. Nice. Yeah, I might have to talk about Zen. I might have to do that. People have been requesting it. I just haven't looked at it yet because I've got so much on my plate, but that's just an excuse, isn't it? Golden ratio resistance down to you're moving up, man. So HZEN's probably going to move up here pretty soon. And now HZEN we can depend on not having an ETF, probably being the key word. From a low to a high in July to where you topped off here in November this month, 478% growth. What did we see here? And you know, from July, we could take July's low, but we'll just take this low from September to the high. 300% growth there. HZEN did 478%, so that's a little bit more than a half, right? 300, 150. You're a little bit more than 1.5 times the amount of growth that we saw in the underlying asset. So that's nice to see. If Zen does what I think it's going to do, then we should see, hi Fiki, come here. That's my cat. We should see something of a 77 to 117% pump with Zen, maybe by the end of this month of November, if not certainly sometime in December, and in which case we would then expect that HZEN grows another like 150% or more around there, right? Something around like $3.75 or more. Where are we at here? Let's just look at this. Let's do a high to a low. Yeah, you just missed your golden ratio. Pulled back a little bit wicked here on the volatility, and that's okay, right? You went up more than Zen. You probably went down more too. I'm curious. Let's just see high to low here. You dropped 61%. Zen dropped 54%. So yeah, higher pumps, bigger dumps. HZEN, you're probably moving up to something around, if I had to guess, something that's above $5. Let me just see here. Where are we at? We're right here. That would put you at a higher premium. You're not really you kind of are respecting these fibs. Maybe the next stop, maybe I'm being too bullish. Okay, maybe Zen, right? If Zen stops at the 786, that's a 80% move. HZEN could stop at its golden ratio to 120% move. That makes sense. I think HZEN, your next target to consider is $3.30 to $4.10. $3.30 to $4.10. If I'm wrong, it's $5.50 to $7.41, and more probably around that $5.50 area. And as far as potential goes, I don't know, because does Zen persist? You're pumping alongside of Zcash and Dash here. I'm assuming you persist. You probably do see new all-time highs, right? Probably. I would think by the end of the year, Zen could see 81, 82 bucks to 115 bucks, somewhere around there. Nice psychological resistance at $100 level. Maybe we go higher, and by the end of this cycle, it's very possible that we see $442 or more. It is possible, right? What's Zen's market cap? It's low, right? It's like less than 100 million or around. Okay, no, I'm sorry, 300 million. Still low, still very low. Yeah, I mean a 10x from 300 million is 3 billion. 25x would be like 6, so you're at like $7.5 billion. Maybe like $8 billion there in market cap. Yeah, Zen Horizon could see a lot higher prices. And in which case the question then is, what does HZEN do? Because if this thing has 26x potential, and this thing is out of the three that we've talked about, the one that is most likely to not have an ETF approved, 26x from here at a minimum should give you then, I would think, at a minimum, something on the lines of like a $67 price. And I'm not going off of the percentage growth. I'm going off of what makes sense in the charts. If we did a 26x here, right, that would basically stop you like right around here, right above the 1 for 1 for. But we already know it does 1.5x or more that in premium growth. I really do think that we could see a $67 price or higher for HZEN by the end of the cycle. And what a massive W pattern you have here too. Massive W pattern. Something, if I had to guess, as long as there's no ETF approved, something between 67, as crazy as this might sound, to maybe like $500. Maybe. Crazy stuff, I know, but man, crazy things happen, and crazy things happen with these Grayscale trusts, man. HZEN's definitely looking promising. It looks very promising, and you can see here that there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of interest that came in here. The institutions know what's going on, man. Remember, there's no institutional vehicle for Zen. The closest thing you have is HZEN. And looks like there's some interest. I don't know. Time will tell. But that's my thoughts. I hope that was good. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. The weekly MACD looks like it wants to cross up here pretty soon. As fun as HZEN or Zen might have been over the past month or so, I think that the real fun's about to begin. Would be my thoughts. Same thing for BCHG and LTCN too. And I want to say something real quick for anybody, because I used to get these questions all the time. For anybody who's wondering, C-Zar, you think that these can do this? Why aren't you invested in these Grayscale trusts? Because I would rather own the underlying asset than own a trust, a derivative, which is really owned by humans, right? Human error comes into play versus coded error in the asset. I'd rather bet on that. I'd rather bet on the asset. So if it came to buying if I had to guess what sees more growth between now and April of 2026, as long as there's no ETFs, the Grayscale trusts for BCHG, LTCN, and HZEN should see more growth than the underlying assets. Should see. But I would still rather buy the underlying asset, because if anything fraudulent happens with Grayscale, anything happens with the CEO, maybe they do private placement sales again, anything like that they can do. If there's any kind of effery on the human side of things, I'm protected. My risk is set, and I'm still making money off the underlying asset growing. So if anybody's wondering, man, if you see HZEN doing a 300x, why don't you buy into that? I'd rather buy Zen. And I'd rather get the, I mean, who wouldn't rather have a 100x, a 300x, whatever, but I'd rather have the 25 to 87x potential, because it's more secure, right? I don't trust people as much as I trust code. Anyways, hit the like button, subscribe, something to think about, right? Something to think about. If you want, in other words, if I was to invest, if I had to invest in Grayscale, what would I do? Like if I was investing in Zen, I'd probably put 80% of what I'm holding in Zen, and then the 20% in HZEN, right? And then same thing with all of them. That's probably how I would do it. Because if the Grayscale trusts move up more, great, I'm making more, and that's fun. That adds a little bit, but then I'm at least holding the underlying asset, and that's secure in itself. I hope that hits home for some people. Anyways, take care. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.